We are live.
Let me pull up this. Where's William?
I don't know. I have not talked to him today. He did not respond to the invitation, and usually he does.
Mm-hmm.
But today is his birthday, so
that's hardly any excuse for not being here. That's well, happy birthday to him.
I mean, given the fact that we've hung out on Christmas and New Year's,
right?
You know,
get over here.
I would think that he would be here on his birthday, but maybe not. We shall see.
Okay.
So you were saying your service has been going in and out?
Yeah, it's been going in and out. I would say for the past few hours or more. I can't account for earlier because I wasn't here today. But it's been going in and out. Yeah, like I said, we just pay for service. You don't get service. You just pay for it.
Do you have high winds going on there?
There's nothing going on outside. Nothing. Zero. It's just a little chilly because it's just a cool day. It's gonna be kind of cold tonight, but there's no wind blowing. There's no storm. There's no nothing. Just as calm out there.
Wow.
It's just called no service. That's all it's called.
Yeah. I understand.
Well, I did find Huey P. Newton's couple of his speeches very interesting.
Oh yeah.
I did. Yeah. One, I should say, was very interesting, and it kind of some of these things, but it's a little different when it's all laid out in front of you.
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about. Well, actually, excuse me. It's not facts. Let's shut that down. Fear and Doubt. I found very interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, very, very interesting, as you probably see. Yeah, I mean, all of them were interesting, but Fear and Doubt, I really...
says a lot.
It says a lot. It says a lot, and actually with very few words. I'm sure they have books out there that have 350, 450 pages.
Right.
With a whole lot of stuff. But just these few paragraphs really summed it up.
Yeah.
Very well, I'm gonna say so.
Yeah. Well, I really was wishing your son was joining us tonight, since there's so much talk here about violence as a strategy, Is he hanging around doing much of nothing?
He's not even here. He went to a job interview today, this morning, about 3 hours long, because of course you interview with 5 people. Then he came home, and actually his best friend, one of his best friends, the other one's married already, is getting married on the 21st. And he's his best man. So he went to get fitted for a tuxedo. Yeah. And I don't know where he is right now, maybe doing something with Roger or whatever the case may be. But that's been some of his day. And of course, he was here for about an hour or so, which disrupted my day because he was talking to me. He was talking to me. How's me? How's my nephew?
He's good. He called me today, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Because we missed our call on Sunday.
Oh.
And that was because he was at a Catholic communion service.
Oh.
Which went on for about 11 hours before he left. And so he said the baby, just was getting beyond himself. And so he was able to use that as an excuse to get out of there.
Well, yeah, and I can understand that because that is a long, drawn out ordeal. I've been to a couple, and girl, I'm an adult and I'm getting kind of squirming in my seat, pulling out the lifesavers, trying to keep your nerves together. It's a lot. So I can imagine baby.
I've never been to one of their communions. I've been to a Catholic wedding.
Oh, that's an ordeal too.
Yeah.
And it's all an ordeal. It's very special. Very special. Just going to a service is special. You get up, you sit down, you kneel down, you get up. You do the complete aerobic workout. Before you leave, you have done your exercise for the day, and Jesus loves you. So I just wish Bill was here.
So I don't know. I was just trying to decide if I should call him or if the kinder, gentler thing is to not call him and let him enjoy whatever he may be enjoying for his birthday.
No, we're not kinder and gentler. I have a birthday coming up, and we don't do kinder and gentler. Okay. No.
Well, I try.
We're old people. Old people don't need kinder and gentler.
All right, let me call him because it is unusual that he didn't respond.
Yeah, because he just does not show up.
Yeah. All right, I'll be right back.
Okay.
He is planning to be here in a few minutes. Venita, are you there? Venita? Venita, are you frozen? One of those days. Venita? Hey,
Hello.
so before I could even tell Venita that you would be here in a few minutes, she dropped out and it looks like she came back in, but her camera is off. But she told me earlier that her internet has been going on and off all day, or this afternoon. So I don't know.
Mm,
Anyway,
well, here
glad
we
you're
are.
here. Happy birthday
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
Were you able to find the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't I didn't do
Yeah. It all
anything.
comes. The link and the agenda come in the same. Yeah. I was saying the
Yeah,
link and the agenda come all in the same email.
I know, but that hasn't stopped people from wondering where it is. So I just asked. Uh,
hmm
wait a minute. Let me see if this is Benita. Okay, that's Benita. Going through changes with her connection. Um, here she is again. Are you in, Benita?
Yes, it keeps dropping me.
Oh, jeez. I see.
Might be a long evening.
I see. Well, let's go on and get started. Um, and welcome everybody to the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series. We are really coming down to the end of the book that we're reading this series, which is Blackmailed, uh, the Black Male Writers, with words from Imam Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, aka H. Rap Brown, but it's actually a collection of poetry and stories and speeches and various kinds of writing by multiple writers. And tonight we are focused on a few pieces written by Huey P. Newton when he was Minister of Defense for the Black Panther Party. Um, what else? You can learn more about the Global Black. You can learn more about the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series, and you can see I'm tired now on Google Plus, YouTube, or Facebook. And my name is Michelle Odom. I'm located in Brooklyn, New York. And Benita, let's get you while you're in.
My name is Venita Walker. I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut. Welcome.
Welcome.
My name is Bill Peters. I'm the publisher at Inner Child Press, and I'm located in Southern New Jersey.
And today is your birthday.
Woo woo
Oh,
for Bill.
well,
All right, happy birthday.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
When you were late getting here, I was saying, well, we hung out on Christmas and New
Yes.
Year's.
Yeah.
But
Well, you know what happened? I went out to lunch with my brothers, and I had a couple beers, came home, I was stuffed, I had a couple beers, and I was sleeping hard. I just woke up about 2 minutes before you called.
We were debating on whether we should call you, and then we decided we should call you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fortunately, the phone was on, it wasn't on silent,
all right, all right.
all good.
Good.
I'll go ahead and do the summary of historic columns and mandates issued by Huey P. Newton, Minister of Defense, Black Panther Party, essays from the Minister of Defense. Essays from the Minister of Defense is a collection of columns and mandates issued by Huey P. Newton on behalf of the Black Panther Party for self-defense in 1967 and 1968. It includes truths, principles, and beliefs from the souls of colonized Black people. According to George Murray, Minister of Education, BPP, who wrote the introduction to this collection, the Black Panther Party believed in armed revolution, a permanent revolution, the creation of as many Vietnams as are necessary to defeat U.S. racism and imperialism throughout the world. The collection includes one of his columns called In Defense of Self-Defense, written in June '67, where Huey P. Newton argues that Black Americans are strategically located to free the world and for the necessity of armed struggle. Another one of those columns, In Defense of Self-Defense, written July '67, identifies 4 types of people: the oppressor, the endorsed spokesman, the implacables, and the masses. And Newton shares his perspective on each one of those types. Another column called The Correct Handling of a Revolution, July '67, describes the necessity of teaching the correct strategy of prolonged resistance so that the masses may follow. The strategy begins with above-ground literature and activities, use of tested revolutionaries, a realization that death is imminent, exemplifying characteristics of worthy leadership, use of mass media, a party newspaper, revolutionary art, and taking the weapons of the oppressor. Another column called Fear and Doubt, May '67. Newton explains the feelings of inferiority in the lower socioeconomic Black male. And then this collection includes 3 executive mandates. The first one warns of concentration camps and genocide and calls on all Black people to arm themselves. The second one drafts Stokely Carmichael into the BPP as field marshal charged with establishing revolutionary law. And the final one calls on party members to gather arms and defend their homes against those who may only be posing as police on threat of being expelled from the party for life. Bill, you want to read part 1, self-defense, please?
Okay. Here we go. Come on, computer. Okay, final. Come on. Okay. Key points and discussion questions. Part 1, self-defense. In defense of self-defense, 620-67, Huey P. Newton argues Black Americans are strategically located to free the world and for the necessity of armed struggle. The Black people in America are the only people who can free the world, loosen the yoke of colonialism, make a malfunction of this machine from within. Black people can destroy the machinery that is enslaving the world. He wrote 268-69, when the people move for liberation, Newton continued, they must have the basic tool of liberation, the gun. Only with the power of the gun can the Black power structure, and in one sense only by the power of the gun can the whole world be transformed into the earthly paradise dreamed of by people from time immemorial. In defense of self-defense, July the 3rd, 1967, Newton identifies 4 types of people: the oppressor, the endorsed spokesman, and the implacables, and the masses, sharing his perspective on the role of each. A mixture of hatred, and respect characterizes Newton's attitude towards the oppressor, which he holds out of deep admiration for those he sees as implacables, and great compassion and love for the masses. Biting criticism is reserved, however, for the endorsed spokesperson, whom have attempted to sell the people the simple-minded theory that politics is holding a political office, being able to move into a $40,000 home, and being able to sit near white people in a restaurant. Page 272. The community realized that force of brutality can only be eliminated by counterforce through self-defense. 1. As Newton states, an earthly paradise has failed to materialize. Do you believe such a paradise may come about through the power of the gun? Why or why not? 2. Huey P. Newton asserts that force and brutality can only be eliminated by counterforce through self-defense. In recent years, we have witnessed, thanks to small cameras, several well-publicized occurrences of force and brutality, and are assured many other situations we do not witness also occur with frightening regularity. In the case of police brutality, is it practical, in your opinion, to employ self-defense? And if not, what other means does the black community have of defending itself?
Okay, thank you. Anybody?
Well, I'll start. Everybody's quiet. I'll start.
I thought I heard Venita trying to say something. Venita,
Yes.
were you trying to say something?
Yes, you guys are freezing. I hardly heard anything he said. I'm going to go out and try to come back in and see if it's better.
Okay. Okay. So you were saying, Bill?
Well, it's like, I guess the premise that Newton proposes, I don't know per se if it's practical, in today's world, because I don't have the gun. Okay. I'm a believer in self-defense, but I'm not sure if violence is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a believer of coalitions being formed, and flexing, our strength and other means, whether be it economic, solidarity, with other demographics or whatever it is. I don't see that our problem is a plain black and white problem in mass. In some demographics, yes, it is a black and white problem. There is racism. There are people that hate black people. And of course, on the opposite and opposing side, there are black people that hate white people, but the black people that hate the white people don't necessarily have the power to eradicate them. This problem that we're speaking on today has not changed in over 50 years. It's the same problem. Maybe it changed its coat, but it's in essence the same problem. It hasn't changed since the days of slavery. When they're picking a nigger, they get to hang. So now they shoot them instead. The sad thing about it is that we're so quick to look outside our community and talk about the brutality outside our community. I would love to see the quote unquote self-love, and we start addressing that particular type of love, addressing and applying that particular love within our community. And as long as we have no solidarity, we're vulnerable. We kill more people in Chicago than the police kill. We kill more of our own in Chicago. And I think that particular type of programming or that particular type of behavior has to be dealt with, whatever. And I think, to be honest with you, it's something we have to deal with. Just like the Black Panthers dealt with the issues in their community themselves, as opposed to waiting for the quote unquote white establishment to come and say, okay, you niggas, it's time for, whatever. I mean, because that's the general attitude they have when they come in, like they're doling out some type of healing salve to us after they done beat us to death, So I think those are the issues I have. I don't know. I can't say violence is the answer. I can say if we can cease the violence, starting at home, then most certain it's like having a dirty house and talking about someone else having a dirty house. Well, we got to clean our own house up first.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I'd say the earthly paradise has not come yet, and we've had guns. Um, so I agree. We might want to try another approach. Um, I also think the problem with that is that um, if if guns, if violence um, are the only way that we have of solving a problem, um, then it doesn't make sense to me how he was talking about the community realizes that force and brutality can only be eliminated by counterforce through self-defense. Um, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. To me, if we want to learn um, how to eliminate violence, then we have to do some things that are nonviolent, so that we learn how to function in a nonviolent way. Um, so, you know, so I agree with you, Bill, and I disagree with um, Huey P. Newton. And I'll just say at the outset, as I say frequently, we of course have the vantage point of being able to look back on these thoughts that were written, nearly 50 years ago. And you're right, the conditions are very much the same. Um, but, we do have an additional 50 years of experience, and we do have age um, that, most of the people that were functioning as revolutionaries or activists, just as they are today, are very young. And so, what we believe does tend to evolve as we mature. So, there's that. Hello, Shareef.
Hey, how you doing, people?
Good. How are you?
On the run as usual.
All right. Well,
Friday's a busy day for me.
we are on questions 1 and 2.
Okay. Hey, birthday boy. You ain't hear me, huh? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
She's muted.
I was on mute. I could hear you. Thank you, man.
Young man. All right. 1 and 2. Self-defense. Self-defense.
So, in terms of question 2, what else, in the case of police brutality, is it practical, in your opinion, to employ self-defense? And if not, what other means does the Black community have of defending itself? Well, I think really Bill's answer, talking about um, cleaning up our own house and um, you know is really where that answer has to come from. We see pictures today. I posted something today I think it was a Hispanic teenager, and the resource officer and the cop in the school body slammed her down on the concrete like she was a 500-pound man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's the kind of stuff that we're seeing.
Right.
There's also another video recently of two cops beating. There was it's Nancy Grace. It's a Nancy Grace story, and two cops. A guy tried to steal a Mercedes Benz, um, and he ended up physically running away from two cops. And when they caught up with him, they beat the hell out of him. And so all of
Yeah.
that is on video. So we're getting these videos, and that's something that's different from 50 years ago.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we're getting the videos. What we're not necessarily getting is the TV coverage.
Right.
But we are getting the videos, and so um, in either one of those cases, I don't know how the individual could have used self-defense personally. Um, but there needs to be a family, there needs to be a community, there needs to be a collective response to those kinds of incidences, in that kind of sense of defending ourselves. And so that's why I agree with what Bill was saying about starting in our own homes.
Right. You know, if the shoe were on the other foot, and I'm a role play here, and I was the white man, and I was looking at this particular community, our community. I really wouldn't pay too much attention to it either. You know, like all they do is protest, loot, they burn their own neighborhoods. I mean, that's a stereotype, that's easy to embrace about us because it's, in a large respect, it is true. I always said that if you want to make a protest, then go across the tracks and burn that community. That lets them know that you're serious. But by the same token, within our own community, there is no solidarity. In other words, all lives matter. Yes, that's true. Black lives matter. Yes, that's true. No mother wants to lose a son or a daughter. No brother wants to lose a sibling to brutality, especially that brutality is, rooted in racism. That tends to be more inflammatory than a brutality committed by our own. And I think that our values are misplaced in that respect. Like a life is a life is a life, regardless of who takes it. Whether it be a doctor, or a racist, or one of our own, it's still a life. And I think that when we understand that and come together with that focus, in a unified front, then we have the ability to go to these legislators and make demands. Then we can address other things that affect our community, like gerrymandering. Why does Ferguson have a large population or a majority population of black folks, yet the majority of the administrators are masses? Why? Because we sat back in content and allowed it to happen. We allowed it to happen. And I think that we need to, become sovereign. Express who we are and what the agendas are that are important to us, our families, our children, our future, our neighborhoods, and then I think we can start to begin to garner the type of respect that is required to effectuate any particular changes that are, needed in our community.
Yeah, and I think along with that that we really have to understand that real change is not a quick process. It's just not.
Right. Right.
And if we even think about what it takes to change something in our own individual lives, then I think it helps us appreciate the difficulty of making mass social changes. And and like as I was saying earlier about if violence is the only way that we can think of to solve a problem or to get what we want, then all we know is how to use violence to get what we want.
Right.
Um, Black Women's Blueprint, a group I used to work for, based here in Brooklyn, is getting ready to have the Black Women's Truth and Reconciliation Commission that they've been planning for a number of years. It's going to be held um, the end of this month, I think April 28th to May 1st, um, at different locations in the city, and a number of well-known people are coming to be a part of it, and Black women are going to be giving testimony about their experiences with sexual assault, and there are some male allies that are going to be there. But I think what I want to say is, that's what I mean. If
Mm.
all we know how to do is use violence to get what we want or to solve problems, then that's all we know how to do. And
Right.
so that's whether, if that's how we approach getting what we want in interpersonal relationships and sexual relationships and parent-child relationships, it just goes out. And so until we flip the script, um, and try to figure out other means of getting what we want, we're just repeating and reinforcing the methodologies instilled in us by the oppressor.
Right. Right. We're condoning it, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Venita or Shareef, did you want to respond to questions 1 or 2?
Um, the number 2 dealt with self-defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was this something that came from the writings of Huey Newton,
Yes.
Huey P. Newton? Yeah, well, I concur with what both of you said. Certainly, what Bill said a couple minutes ago about the realities of our communities being reactionary instead of being proactive. People tend to be reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in the Black community, but there's other communities that mirror the same problem when it comes to addressing a glaring injustice, going about it in the wrong way that can be counterproductive, even exacerbate the problem rather than improve it. And there's so many things that go into this. It's a stew. There's so many things that go into this, socially, economically. There's so many things that are deep rooted that is manifested in what Bill says comes to a head, and people burn down their own spot that you got to shop in. Now you ain't got no store. You ain't got the services. You had such little services to begin with. Now you got even less. Now you got to hop a bus and go cross town to go get what you had on the corner yesterday, and they don't want you there. So what did you solve? What did you solve? It wasn't well thought out. It was reactionary. Reactionary does not work. It has to be well thought out. It has to be planned properly. It has to be, people have to be at the helm that are real leaders, and the people that follow them have to be committed. That's idealistic. It hasn't happened. It hasn't materialized. Certainly, if it has happened, it's happened for short spurts, and then it decimated. It evaporated. It evaporated for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of deep-rooted situations that go into that manifestation. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's a manifestation. One got to ask themselves a question to be analytical What is the what? Why is that a matter? What is that a what caused that manifestation? What is the deep-rooted problem? And we in a society anyway that deal with symptoms and never the cause. And the black community is no different, really, except for there's some voices in the dark that remind people of that. You got to deal with the cause, the root cause, in order to solve and eliminate and preventive medicine. Don't get sick in the first place. That's the best medicine. Instead of getting sick and then you look for the cure. You know. So there's, all that's in the pot. You know. That's the way. I just wanted to. That's what the way it hit me when you were talking.
Okay, thank you. And Venita, anything?
I don't believe guns have power in them. Period. So I would never think that would be a method of solving any problem. We're not dealing with the OK Corral around here. Gun-wielding cowboys, shoot 'em up, bang, bang. Because, first of all, it's too many people to shoot up and bang, bang. And if we do kill each other, if there is a paradise, if there's any chance of there being a paradise, and that's subjective, then we'll never know. So I would never want to use violence as a method to convey any message. And once again, it also, that is the problem. And I never, from my personal experience of dealing with any situation or concern or problem, it usually doesn't work out well when you fight a problem with a problem. So that's about all I have to say about that. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but I definitely would not suggest using guns. We need to use our heads. We need to start working internally on ourselves first, from the inside out. And that, I think, will help us to prevail at the end. And that's going to be constant. That will not stop. That's another thing I think that people don't understand. It's just not a one-shot deal. That's going to have to be consistent as long as any of us are around.
Yeah, one of the things that Huey Newton talks about is that most black, he talks about the vanguard and the masses.
Yes.
And he's saying that most black people are activists. They want to be doing something.
Yes.
And so the work of reflection, the work of planning,
yes.
The work of analysis, all of that kind of stuff is really more than most people seem to be able to bear or have been trained to handle. So, that's a part of the problem. But Shareef, as you were talking about, and Bill talking about tearing up our own neighborhoods, I remember saying to Venita recently, because she was saying the same thing, it just, it makes no kind of sense. But to me, it kind of does make sense. And, remember, Venita, I was saying it's both rational and irrational.
Yes.
It's rational in the sense that if you went over into that other neighborhood and tried to tear up over there, we really would be wiped out very quickly. Yeah. So as mad and angry and reactionary and irrational as we are, somehow we still have enough sense to know, well, if I tear up my own neighborhood, ain't nobody gonna care. But if I go over there, it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
If I may, when I look back to the mid '60s on when this revolutionary, program started within our neighborhoods, one of the things that was born out of it that was very, very positive is that during the late '60s and early '70s, we ourselves, it wasn't in police, it wasn't but our own community activist groups, as well as our gangs, stopped the gang violence. We stopped the gangs. That was a big, big movement during that period of time. If I were to look forward, I would say, why don't we borrow a page out of their book? In essence, the whole premise is one that's imperialistic, and it employs colonialism in reference to and propaganda in reference to how they control us. I do not dismiss for a minute that all this brutality is part of a provocation, part of a provoking to see what we will do and how much they can get away with, so to speak, because it seems like it's systematic. However, like I referred to earlier, we have to have a front of solidarity, within our community, just like the gangs did in the 60s and 70s. And if we take a page out of their book, why don't we start employing some propaganda, just like they do all over the world by sending the missionaries in first, to do the Jesus Christ thing, and they, get the treaties, and the blessings to go and take away all the resources, just like they do in our community, and then they send the guns in to reinforce that, that whole premise of lies, because when we wake up, it's most of the time it's too late, until you get a Mugabe or a Mean or, that says, hey, enough's enough, y'all getting the hell out of here. But I think that, we can borrow a page out of their book, if we had a collective mindset, in reference to what our goals are, because, everything that's happening now and everything that has happened to us and peoples around the world, has started always with propaganda. Started always with selling somebody a bill of goods, whether it was Jesus Christ, or whatever, that we're going to make your life better, and from there it just grew into something else.
If I may add to that, both of my sons are very athletic.
You can, Venita, but will it possibly go into the next section? Because we're now almost at 7:20.
Okay.
Okay. Shareef, you want to read part 2 for us, please?
Yeah. Hang on a second. Revolution and the Fearful, right?
Mm-hmm.
B. In the correct handling of a revolution, which was written July the 20th, 1967, Huey Newton describes the necessity of teaching the correct strategy of prolonged resistance so that the masses may follow. The strategy begins with above ground literature and use of tested revolutionaries to minimize the danger of Uncle Tom, informers, and opportunists. I'm going to say the strategy begins with ground literature and use of tested revolutionaries. And in brackets he emphasized to minimize the danger of Uncle Tom, informers, and opportunists. A realization that death is imminent, exemplifying characteristics of worthy leadership, use of mass media, a party newspaper, revolutionary art, and taking the weapons of the oppressor. The main function of the party is to awaken the people and to teach them the strategic method of resisting the power structure, which is prepared not only to combat the resistance of the people with massive brutality, but to totally annihilate the black community, the black population, wrote Newton. He also points to the successful strategy employed by Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution, as well as other effective revolutionaries in Kenya. That's Jomo Kenyatta with the Mau Mau. I think that's what he's referring to. Jomo Kenyatta with the Mau Mau movement that drove the British out. Algeria, the great Algerian Revolution. I got to come back to that for a second and ask you all something about that, about Algeria. Russia and China, etc. So they got the Bolshevik Revolution, and then they got Mao Zedong and that revolution with Mao.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fear and doubt explains the feelings of inferiority in the lower. I'm scrolling. That's why it takes me a second to read the whole thing because I'm doing it on my phone. I don't have the text otherwise. Explains the feelings of inferiority in the lower socioeconomic black male. First, his attitude is that he lacks innate ability to cope with the socioeconomic problems confronting him. And second, he tells himself that he has the ability, he but he simply has not felt strongly enough to try to acquire the skills needed to manipulate his environment. If he openly attempts to discover his abilities, he and others may see him for what he is or is not, and that is the real fear. Fear. He may he may attempt to make himself visible by processing his hair, acquiring uh, a boss mop or a boss bag. You know that's in the 70s. You don't hear nobody say that's boss.
I didn't even know what that was.
That's boss. Driving along. I'm surprised he didn't put short down here. A long car, even though he can't afford it. Found Newton. That's that ghetto fabulous thing.
Uh-huh.
That's that ghetto fabulous thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You heard Judge Mathis always talk about that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
ghetto fabulous moment, right? Moreover, he is viewed as quite worthless by his wife and children. He cannot, this is real stereotypical stuff, provide for or protect his family. He is invisible, a non-entity. Society will not acknowledge him as a man. He is a consumer and not a producer. He is dependent upon the white man, the man, to feed his family, to give him a job, educate his children, serve as the model that he tries to emulate. He is dependent and he hates the man and he hates himself. He's in a good place, huh? Who is he? Who is he? Is he a very old adolescent or is he the slave he used to be? What did he do to be so black and blue? Oh, that's deep. Huey was killing it, man. Huey was killing it. What did you think? What did you think of the strategic method of resisting? I'm getting a kick out of that. Resisting the power structure outlined by Huey P. Cuba did in fact throw off the yoke of the Western imperialism for many years. What do you think is driving their recent openness to a visit by the American president? And what concerns, if any, do you have about this thaw in relations? Should I stop right there?
No, go ahead and read question 4, please.
Writing in the late 1960s, nearly 50 years ago, we see that Newton's view that feelings of inferiority instilled during American chattel slavery had not left the subconscious or conscious mind of the black man. Has the black man overcome these feelings, in your opinion? Why or why not? What might be some effective tools, methods, or strategy for healing from an inferiority, from an inferiority complex?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Venita, why don't you start us out? Maybe you can remember what you were going to say. I know it started out with my sons.
I was going to say that my sons, both of them are athletes, and they played various sports. The one sport that I really admire was football because it's not actually a game of strength only. It's mostly a game of mental strategy. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that violence would never, ever be the way. because I strongly believe that you are as only good as your last play, and usually that's what violence does. You shoot them up, bam, that's your, and we have to then start another play. But I do believe if you use a mental strategy as he laid out through education, um, educating folks, that would definitely be a better way to go and a good place for us to start. So that was my comment there, is that mentally
well, then why don't you look at question 3 and tell us, did you have any reaction to the strategic method of resisting the power structure that Newton identified? And if you go back up to the first paragraph under Revolution and the Fearful, that's where he talks about the strategy begins above ground with literature and activities, using tested revolutionaries, realizing that death is imminent, exemplifying characteristics of worthy leadership, use of mass media, a party newspaper, revolutionary art, and taking the weapons of the oppressor.
I thought that was very interesting. And I actually think that Newton had something. He has something there. I agree with him. That's the way we've done it in the past. And believe it or not, it has worked in the past. Actually, when and where I enter, it's actually very similar to what my girls did. It takes a lot of patience. It takes time because you have to educate folks, which is very important. But I agree that we should not necessarily change the game, because white folks don't change the game. They really don't. They play the same game over and over again. They have the same strategic plan to oppress us over and over again. And I do believe that's a plan that can probably work.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
you know the story is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you're right, Venita, it's worked. But I was sitting here thinking about Newton, and I have to concur with him. Perhaps it isn't violence, but perhaps the threat of violence. When I look at every great revolution, whether it was in China and its possessions. I even look at India, for example, and the Zulu nation. They tried dialogue, but I think the main fear as to why Britain withdrew from India is that they looked at the sheer numbers, not so much because they had a change of heart and said, okay, well, we need to do the right thing. It was really that they looked at the sheer numbers of the people, and we forget, we look at Gandhi and say, oh yeah, it was a peaceful revolution, and that's a bunch of crap, because you had what we now know as the Hindi, the Pakistanis, that weren't hearing it, that were fighting and killing and looting and all that kind of stuff, but they looked at the sheer numbers of the people and realized it was an insurmountable odds. The same thing with the Zulu Nation. They tried to, do it peacefully at first and, try to convince them, or, we're imperialists, let us have our way, but, Brother Shaka wasn't having it, and I think that the fear of violence, brings about, change a lot of times when they realize that, okay, we're not playing enough is enough, and, either you, get going, go back home, or face the consequences, and I think that's part of the thing that the Black Panthers instituted in our communities, that we weren't going to lay here and be the little lambs for you, and I think that particular type of attitude that Stokely, Newton, Rapp, and those brothers back in those days, Hampton, voice, that made them realize that we weren't played. Thus, the birth of COINTELPRO. We got to find another way to overcome.
All right. Well, I just have to say that I believe that I am hearing a flip-flop from questions 1 and 2, now that we're down to 3 and 4, I believe that I'm hearing in the beginning, violence is not the answer, to now hearing, well, maybe he really has to use violence. So I am going to try to remain consistent with my position.
Well, it's
Which,
not a flip flop in the fact.
which is that, I am really having a hard time picturing Black Americans, the small percentage that we are of this population, even though we know there's a much larger category of people of color in this country. But we're not a cohesive community.
Right.
We're not all thinking the same things, feeling connected, and all of that. So this idea of taking the weapons away from the oppressor, in this day and age, is hard for me to wrap my head around. And I do think that we have to look at this day and age. When we want to compare ourselves to Cuba or Algeria or wherever, we're looking at very different conditions. Very different conditions.
That's right.
And that unless we can look at the reality of what we're dealing with now, we ain't on nothing.
Well, I think the common thread, Logan, through it all is I don't think it's so much of a flip-flop, but, realizing the merit of a unified front, of a solidaritist front. I think that's the thing that we're missing, the fact that it doesn't matter whether it's economics or a gun. The bottom line is, if we come together, we have to be respected, and that's what's lacking, is the fact that we as community are not together, politically.
Well, I think that we have to be clear, because there are some people that when you say violence, what they think about is violence, not a united front.
No. What I'm saying is that they respected the threat of the violence.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
I agree. I understand.
They respected the
And
threat of the violence.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, and I do believe in collective action. If you think back to the conversations that we had, when we were reading Dr. King's piece, I do believe that nonviolent direct action is action. And it does require a level of unity, etc. And I don't know that we're in a place to even pull off that in this day and time. But, because we know we have so many hotheads among us, I do think that we have to be a little bit careful when we're talking about the issue of violence and clarifying exactly what we mean, because I think it can easily be taken out of context.
I don't believe that we can take the weapons from them by any means, or we should even attempt to do that. However, I think it's gotten to the point where what I mean by violence is we may have to defend ourselves fairly soon, regardless of what else is going on. Mm-hmm. Because I'm listening very careful to a lot of folks in our society, and it's getting a little scary. So I would be the person to think that we would, I wouldn't perpetrate violence, but I do believe it's going to be very soon where violence is going to come through defending ourselves. Because
and one of the things that Newton mandated was that all Black people arm themselves, and be prepared to defend your home.
And I agree with that 100%, because I've been hearing folks standing around, and I'm sure other folks have, you're going up to Washington, flinging rifles over your shoulder. We're going to take back our country. Folks are getting around, running around here, and a lot of states are passing laws now where before, now guns, they're changing it up. Guns cannot be concealed. You must let them be seen. So it's a whole different mentality. We're going beyond what we're dealing with. We're talking about other things going on now. So the violence might just come through us defending ourselves, and I think that's coming quick. And that's what I mean by violence. Not us going around with guns hurting other people.
Okay.
you know, we might have to take, you know, make sure you got your stuff together because folks is going a little crazy these days. And they're saying, and they're actually, my husband was telling me that he's getting concerned, and he is a very peaceful man. But listening to others in conversations, folks are getting very brazen and saying things that aren't sounding, that sound a little violent. You know, they're not hesitating. Everyone's getting this, the oppressors are getting a lot of heart these days. You know what I'm saying? They're not quiet with it now. It's like, I have a gun and...
Right. No, like Bill said earlier, it's really as if they're trying to provoke.
And they are.
You know. Anyway, Shareef, were you trying to say something on this one?
Yeah, this is a real loaded topic. I mean, pardon the pun. Locked and loaded. You know, there's so many things that go on. It's never a simple answer to any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Obviously, if there was, you know, we would have had solutions a long time ago. You know,
right?
It's a very complex, and that's not an accident. You know, there's been an agenda afloat for a long time that's well thought out and mapped out and carried out by the so-called powers to be and their allies. You know, allies in arms, allies in philosophy, and what have you. One of the the things that's very interesting to me is Venita had mentioned about concealed. No, you can still conceal. They have concealed permits. I mean, but that's even a strange situation. It's very inconsistent. You can get a concealed permit, for instance, as an example, in the state of Florida, fairly easily if you don't have felonies, right? It's just an example. But you better be damn sure when you cross the state line, if you get on I-95 and go up north, and now you're going into Georgia, now you're going into the Carolinas, Virginia, and so forth and so forth. What the laws are of those states, because those states may not support that permit you have, and you have a concealed weapon on your person, all of a sudden you're in a state that's not supported, and they'll lock you up like you ain't got nothing in your pocket to substantiate that you have a legal right to carry. You know? So that's no accident either. There's no cohesiveness in the 50 states where, just like a driver's license, the antithesis of that is a driver's license. You have a driver's license from any state; it's valid in any state. If you got a New York State driver's license, you go to the Carolinas, anywhere, you're a licensed driver. But there's a reason why weapons don't have that same. Don't have that same consistency. You know, when it comes to weapons, you know, they make it very easy to lock your behind up if they want to lock you up. You know, and look at the areas too. Look how hard it is. Look how hard it is in the state of New York. I'm a New Yorker like yourself. I'm a Brooklynite. I remember applying for a pistol permit up in New York years ago, and the load of paperwork they drop on you, man, when you go down to police headquarters, they really do everything they can to discourage you and make it very tough. The scrutiny and everything else is structured where it's very, very tough to get a permit in the inner cities, in the urban areas, as opposed to the rural areas of our country. You know. And that's no accident. So there's some peculiarities involved in that, and all the components that go into that. It's very curious and interesting to me. I just wanted to share that with you. You know.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to say on question 3, Cuba. What do you think is driving their recent openness to a visit by the American president? Well, you know, some of the coverage of Barack's visit was of the people, expressing their desire for some of the material things, you
Mhm.
know, um, that we have in this country. Um, and so, I don't know how much of that was real, how much of it was propaganda. Um, but just the fact that they opened themselves to a visit says something to me. And, as I was saying earlier about being realistic about the long-term process that real change is, um, I think we may be in the midst of witnessing, what looked like one of the most uh, revolutionary examples of modern history. We may be starting to look at the devolving of
If I
that.
may, if you speak specifically on Cuba,
Hmm.
what we're witnessing is neo-fascist colonialism. And don't get it twisted at all. What we see on the news is basically what we adhere to in our belief system, but there is an equal vanguard in Cuba that does not want this.
Mhm.
Because the first person, even before Obama visited, the first group of people, capitalists, that made deals with Cuba were the shipping, the cruise lines. It's all about the money, pure and simple. The people that are for the change have been indoctrinated to want what the West has wanted them, just like Stokely was saying, and us wanting the $40,000 homes. Not Stokely, but Huey was saying about us wanting the 40,000. It's the same thing. You dangle the carrot in front of the horse, and the horse is so focused on the carrot, you don't see him. He doesn't see you picking his pocket. Cuba has wealth and resources, that we want. They have, a vanguard of young folks that want to participate in what the Western world has. But there also is an equal vanguard that is looking to protect their culture, which we know for a fact. In 20 years, 30 years, that culture of old Cuba will be gone due to capitalism. You know,
Yeah.
um, and there's Lord, but the news does not show us that. You have to literally do research to find, these people in this movement that says, hey, to hell with the United States, get the hell out of here. We don't want your capitalism. We've been fine for all these years. Those that want to leave can leave. But it's like I said, it's the old carrot, stick and carrot theory.
Yeah. 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 It's very troubling.
You know,
Um,
can I just,
quickly, Shareef, because I want to move on. We are very late.
Fidel wasn't very happy about his visit. Did you get any feedback on that?
Not
Yeah, I know he
really.
wasn't. Yeah, he
Huh?
wasn't.
No.
He wasn't because we
Mhm.
know it's all BS,
Mhm.
propaganda by the news media.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Venita, could you read part three, please, quickly?
Okay. The mandates. Is that where we're at?
Mhm.
Okay. Executive Mandate number 1, 5/2/1967, warns of concentration camps and genocide and calls on all black people to arm themselves. The Executive Mandate number 2, 6/29/67, drafts Stokely Carmichael into the BPP as Field Marshal charged with establishing revolutionary laws. Executive Mandate number 3 on 3/1/68 calls all party members to gather arms and defend their homes against those who may only be posing as police on threat of being expelled from the party for life. Number 5, what are the strengths and weaknesses or positives and negatives of attempting to mandate or force people to behave in a certain way? Offer some examples of ways you have reacted when someone has tried to mandate, force, compel, or direct you to act in a certain way, particularly when you disagree with the mandate. Number 6, given what you believe about the efficacy of mandating human behavior, What does this suggest to you about managing the struggle for human liberation?
Anything?
I need to think about this for a second. You got anything over there, Bill? Shareef?
No, I'm going to defer to Shareef.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind about mandate is when you're in the military, you're basically being held captive, you know, to certain things you may not agree with, but you got to go along with it unless you go AWOL, or unless you want to go to jail. The same thing, any controlled environment. If you're incarcerated, there's a mandate. You know, there's a line you have to toe, or life can be extremely difficult for you. You know, even to the point where you can lose it. Okay, so that a lot of times these kind of environments don't work out because it depends on what it is that's mandated. First of all, is it reasonable? Is it humanistic? Is it self-serving? Is it tyrannical? You know, you got all of these is in the mix about what's mandated. You know, and if it's not, if it's not complementary to human nature, it tends to become a big problem. And certain morale sinks very low if that's the case. If people don't have the wherewithal to counter it or to overcome it, they act out in many abnormal ways, because they're dealing with an abnormal situation and tend to react to it in an equally abnormal way. That's counterproductive. It doesn't solve the problem whatsoever. So that's even with the Jim Crow thing. That's even with post-slavery. That goes into the whole psychosis. It's a whole many things going in this mandate thing. You know.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's missing that Huey is alluding to, and other so-called revolutionaries, is the need for discipline and adherence to a structure of leadership that's like a cadre, It is a paramilitary setup, you know, at least. And people have to be disciplined enough and committed enough to a cause to hear and obey. The mantra is hear and obey, regardless of what it is. If you don't have that, if you don't surrender to the foundation of whatever it is you're striving for, and respect your leadership, it's going to be short-lived, and that's been repeated often in many so-called causes and movements, because
Mm-hmm.
that commitment just wasn't there. It was lip service,
Right.
more times than not.
Right. And so I agree with you, Shareef, but at the same time, I would answer from the opposite perspective. In that I think it is extremely difficult, almost impossible, to force or mandate people to do things that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so that's why you get the lip service and the lack of commitment and the
Exactly.
Uncle Toms and
Yep.
the betrayers and all of that.
Right.
Because people will tell you, that they're with you, that they're for you, and then do what it is they really want to do anyway.
So it was designed to fail, right?
Well, to me, that's why I go into the next question of, given what you believe about the efficacy of mandating human behavior, what does that suggest to you about managing the struggle for human liberation? And so for me, I think that we are looking at a much more bite-sized, individualized, personalized approach to social change. Maybe you can go as big as the family unit, but that's about it. Because particularly those of us in this Western culture that have been fed a steady diet of meism and individualism, and my will matters and free will, and all of that is what we're coming up against when you start to talk about collective strategies. And so that's one piece. The other piece is, and I've said before that I very much consider myself a part of the Ella Baker school of thought, in that you really have to spread out the knowledge. You really have to spread out um, the leadership. People really have to learn how to become leaders in their own lives, because until we have that kind of decentralized, widespread model, then the oppressor can do what the oppressor has always done: kill the leader, kill the movement. You know. So,
That's right.
anybody else on those five or six? Okay, well, let's do a quick, see if we can do a quick love note, because we haven't had that in a couple of weeks. And relate today's reading selection to the concept of love. Was there anything in the day's reading that speaks to you or strikes you as an example of revolutionary love? If so, what was it? And then this is a quote from Cicely Tyson. The moment anyone tries to demean or degrade you in any way, you have to know how great you are. Nobody would bother to beat you down if you were not a threat. Cicely Tyson. So question 8 is, do you see a way that revolutionary love might help to resolve some of the problems identified in this week's reading, such as racism, imperialism, resistance, struggle, leadership, betrayal, fear, or feelings of inferiority? And if so, what might that look like? Anybody?
Yes. Fear or feeling of inferiority. That really strikes a nerve with me, because I believe that in the dire state that we're in at this point, being that we have regressed and we have a lot of things to do, well, we should start with the children. Being present for our children, not just being there physically, but actually being present, listening to them, trying to understand them, exposing them to knowledge, is sharing our wisdom with them, so we can help to build healthy self-esteem. So we won't have these inferiority complexes. So we'll be able to see strong children, grow up and feel good about themselves, and they'll want to make a change. Because when you feel good and you see things going on around you that aren't good, you feel good about yourself, the next step is to want to make changes.
Yeah, and I think I agree, and I think it's virtually impossible to take a grown man or woman who is suffering from an inferiority complex and make them feel good about themselves. And people go down that road. I don't know why they do.
I don't either.
It's a dead end,
girl.
But yeah, you gotta start letting the children know they are special, they are valued.
That's right.
They are somebody.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be family members. Once again, we all know that families are broken, and in some families they're even trying to heal themselves. But in the process of healing themselves, that also takes time. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the little person is growing. So you don't have to be the mother or the father of that child. You could be a neighbor, you could be an uncle, aunt, friend, librarian, you name it, poet.
Yeah.
And you see a child and you can share something with that child or listen to that child, or if that child asks you a question, you can answer the question or help them to find the answer for themselves, which is what I suggest, is leading them to references.
And if we were loving our children like that, it would be revolutionary. And and I think, and I remember thinking this when the Occupy movement was hot, and I also see it in some of the behavior of the Black Lives Matter people. As hard as it is for me to wrap my head around how anybody ever thought we were in a post-racial society. The maybe the good part of that is maybe it's some evidence that we were teaching our children to expect the best, to expect something from this life and something from this world. And so now, of course, they're shocked and outraged
Oh, yeah.
to see what's going on. But I think that you have to have that expectation, in order to have the capacity to
Yes.
try to exert your will
Yes.
on the world.
Yes.
You know, if I may, I go back to
Papa Bill, of course you may.
yeah, I go back to an old theme, and when I look at
I can't see you, Bill.
okay, when I look at the advent of what we call slavery, modern day slavery, I kind of think that one of the most significant things that was taken from us is our history. Because once the generations to come were cut off, from knowing who they were and where they came from, then it started to affect our personal self-esteems, and then with debating against the good hair versus the light hair, the light skin versus the dark skin, the house nigga versus the field nigga, that particular type of mentality, we kind of bought into that. And it still prevails to this day that you'll still hear people talk about, oh, you got good hair because it emulates the white thing, or oh, that's a beautiful baby, but you see a dark baby and it's not, you don't get those particular type of accolades. So that whole concept of self-hate has been programmed into our way of being, our thought patterns. So going forward, when I think in terms of resolution or revolution, is that there's been a lot of great things that have been done in modern era. We have made great contributions, and I think how we start to rebuild that foundation within our community is to make sure, now that we're allowed to read and write, is to make sure that we pass that information on to the generations to come, whether it's by writing a book, reading a book, having family time. I think those things are integrally important, and that's from in my lifetime, that's one of the things that we have lost coming from my time with, per se, my grandparents, who were advocates of passing history on, to my mother and father, who were too busy to take the time to pass history on, to me, thinking it wasn't as important as I now see it.
Thank you. Shareef, do you have time to give us drop a poem on us?
Drop? You mean drop like a weight?
Yeah.
Ouch! 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 Yeah, I got something here.
All right.
Surprise!
What's it called? Pride?
No, I said surprise.
Oh.
I said I got something here. Surprise! Who would have thunk? Who would have dunked?
Not me.
Okay, I got a piece called the blame game. That's a heavy statement. The blame game. This is a new piece. All right, so it's new today, it'll be old tomorrow. Blame game, named for the system's MO, making blaming victims their flow. First, them demonize you, marginalize you, disenfranchise you, patronize you, blind the eyes to disguise the lies, then them dumb the minds, flip the script after them script the flip. Traits of self-proclaimed greats on a power trip. Just trace tyrant's DNA on a historical tip. Remember in school when a fool started some shit that you finished? Only for your own status being diminished? Detention, suspension, expulsion, fact. But remember, you was the one attacked. Same old situation, exact. Them keep this tactic intact. Fuck them up, lock them up, zip them body bags up, then tell the world they started the shit up. What you expect from fuck ups? Minding your damn business just ain't enough. Like Ali said, they got the right complexion to make the right connection. Their spokespeople misrepresent truth, promote lies, tell bigots what they want to believe so that bullshit flies. Let them dumb ass try it on for size. We beat your poor black and brown ass down to the ground and you got the nerve to try to rise? Motherfuckers try to rise. Them tried to rise. Ungrateful son of bitches. We could and should have took their lives. We're entitled privilege on the strength of color of skin left to us by our kith and kin. So if we want to, we'll just keep on blaming the victim. In this system steeped in sin, let us sing God Bless America. And that's spelled with 3 Ks. And that's the name of that piece.
Shareef, you have a foul mouth. I just had to point that out.
That was the poem. That wasn't. I was just reading the poem. Look, I don't. You don't hear me saying no expletive deleters when I'm talking to you.
So why do you put it in your poetry?
Well, because it's an instrument of expression, artistic. I'm an artiste, so I get a pass, right, Bill? We get a pass.
We get a pass.
We get a pass. I get it.
And if I offended anybody, I am very sorry. It wasn't intended to offend.
No, I'm not offended. I just needed to point that out.
Well, maybe I need to tone it down, but maybe I do need to tone it down. Yeah.
No, you're an artist. You need to express whatever it is you want to express. I do believe in artistic freedom.
Just call me the Richard Pryor of poetry. That's right.
All right.
Maybe that's it. I don't know.
No, very good. The blame game. All right. Bill, anything?
Yeah, I'm going to read this short piece. It's called Pi 3.14. And this kind of follows the accord of the words of Solomon that nothing new is under the sun. Okay? So here we go. We create things to have faith in, or it is given to us. And perhaps, just perhaps, we will understand its mechanisms and learn to have faith in ourselves and the greatness that resides within us. Esteem seems to be quite necessary, regardless of how flawed it may be. For how would we get by day if we did not see ourselves as worthy to some degree? We falsely pride ourselves on our intelligence, but of what is such made, save a recycled material that is passed on from age to age? There is an energy from which we have turned our consciousness away, but it has not abandoned us, and we have not the ability to abandon it, for we are but its composition reflecting upon its own magnificence. We are the pi of the pie. And that's that piece.
Pi 3.14?
3.14.
All right. On consciousness.
Pi.
Do you believe in the multiverse?
Who, me?
Yeah. Parallel universes.
You have to, if you feel that there are no limitations to your creator. When we say multiverse, that's just a limited explanation of the vast ability of our creator. My words cannot contain what my creator is. It's impossible for me to even begin to explain. So we lean to the tenets of faith, and trust, that he is, as they say, all wise, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and we have to kind of trust in that, in that it's unreasonable for me to fathom it, and even if I could I handle it, You know, they say that we humans operate on 9 to 13% of our gray matter. I
Or
can't even
less.
imagine what it's like. Yeah, huh?
Or
Or
less.
less for some people. Yeah, for some, and but by the same token, I can't imagine what 20% or 50% or 100% would be like.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine.
Absolutely.
That don't include the Trump aficionados. They might have like half of that capacity,
Yeah, yeah,
like 2.5
yeah.
maybe if you're being generous. You
Right.
know.
Right. Well, guys, as always, it has been a lovely evening. And again,
Absolutely.
Bill, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
We have hung out on Christmas and New Year's, and now your
Yeah.
birthday, and uh, I don't know who else I could say
That ain't
that
saying
about.
much about our lives either. You know, that's not saying much about you know.
Well, I enjoy every minute of it. So,
Yeah, I do too.
so all right, we've only got a couple of weeks left, and
Okay.
next week is going to be H. Brown, and then the last week are just those last few pages that are in the book, like there's a word from Bill, and I just want us to kind of reflect on the overall all book at that point. Shareef, did you ever find the book?
No, I
No.
have not found the book. I
All
have it,
right.
but I'm in the process of relocating, and things are upside down. So
I know. Some of
please
these
accept.
last couple of pieces, though, you can find on the internet. Um, so you might want to do that for next week for the H-Rap Brown pieces. So, all right. Good night,
Yeah, that's how I
everybody.
met him. Just a little note of history, and this is the importance of paying it forward. You know, what produced him being in the book, came through him and I communicating, as we know that he's a political prisoner. Um, but blessings and love to my brother Shareef, who introduced me to H. Rap Brown. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
all that could not have happened without someone paying their blessings forward to somebody else. And I implore that we do the same. That we do the same, because it's a powerful, powerful paradigm when we start to share what we have with each other for the good of each other.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll see you all next week reading our story together.
Okay.
God
Have
bless.
a good one.
Have a beautiful day, beautiful
Bye
weekend.
bye. Love you guys.
Okay. Peace. Love
Love
you too.
you.
Take care.